Hi, and welcome again to Intentism Shows. This is the series of interviews. It's episode 2. Last time I had the privilege and the pleasure of interviewing my brother, Luciano Pelosi, who's also a writer and artist, and we particularly engage with his wonderful photo, Big Breakfast, which looks at how irony can only really be understood properly in the context of intention. And I'm equally excited this time because we're going to be interviewing a dear friend of mine and a fellow intentist, Gideon Parry. So I'm just going to bring him in. Hey Gideon, how are you doing?
Good, very well. How are you?
I'm very well. Good to see you. Thanks so much for coming along and joining us.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, we got a couple of questions I know I'm very interested in asking you, and I hope the people that are listening and watching us will equally share that interest. And the first thing is a little bit about yourself. So maybe you could tell the viewers a little bit about how you got into art, what art schools you went to, a little bit more about your artistic background, please.
Yeah, sure. I went to a place called Byam Shaw School of Art, which was taken over by Central St Martin's, and I did fine art painting, worked in the Life Room, worked in the image studios, and spent a lot of time I was quite influenced by Giorgio Morandi, so I was doing these kind of very mundane still life paintings of kind of accidental scenes of objects just as they appeared, as I found them, basically, and I've been doing that on and off for a number of years.
Wonderful. I think I recall we had an Intentist exhibition many years ago, I think in 2009, in Soho, and you had some of these, I don't know if they're oils or acrylic, these still lives. Is that some of the work you're referring to?
Yes, that's right. Mixed media, oil on board, sort of charcoal, mixed media. Yeah, that's right. So basically, I was doing painting lots of things like toilet ducts and very, very mundane objects that you wouldn't ordinarily consider to be worthy of, a subject for art. But I found them quite interesting, and through the process of painting, they would almost be transformed into something else. But yeah, so I've kind of been doing, but the writing's really taken over in recent years.
Wonderful. And just going back to those paintings again, I think I remember at the time you were saying you were influenced by some kind of Japanese construct or idea of finding beauty in things that are perhaps broken. Can you say a little bit more about that?
This Japanese kind of Zen idea called wabi-sabi, and it's all about the beauty in almost in ugliness or in just deterioration, and how it's just a natural process. So where things kind of deteriorate, and it's seen very much in the tea ceremony, for example, where objects in the tea ceremony are these kind of have imperfections, and they're not. So it's all about imperfection and decay and the beauty inherent in that.
Wonderful, thanks, Skid. Now, we've known each other for a number of years, haven't we? And you've also been involved with the art movement, Intentism, for quite some time as well. Are you able to sort of look back and try and recall a little bit how you got involved with the art movement?
Yeah, I was kind of interested. I remember an evening we all went back, a few of us, to this flat, and we were kind of talking and quite enthusiastically about these ideas. And I just thought it was interesting because it was so kind of different to the way things are seen have been until recently, at least, or still are actually. You know, the way people just kind of interpret art in the idea being that, you know, whatever you feel the piece of work is about is fair game, you know. And I think we try to kind of think of we're really challenging that idea.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. We're certainly counter to the kind of cultural landscape of art practice and art theory at the moment. I remember many years ago we wrote to just under 100 different art critics in the UK, just telling them about our ideas and our work. And I think it was along the lines of three or four that replied, and they're all hostile. In fact, one of them was saying that you clearly know nothing about art, and I think referred to us as Mr. and Mrs. Intentism, just to sort of insult us a little bit. I remember many years ago as well, we were intrigued about authorship and intention in writing. And I know that you've obviously been doing a lot of writing recently, but you did a couple of poems, and if you recall those, you did a couple of poems. If I recall, you left some of the previous ideas of how you might write certain lines in parenthesis. Do you remember doing that? Good.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What was that? Do you remember any more about that particular poem? It's so long ago, but do you remember anything?
I think it was to do with feelings of love and feelings of loss, and just I kept changing my ideas, and you know, the ideas in brackets were sort of, I wasn't sure whether to include them or not include them, so I was leaving some kind of intentional trail there in the work.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And that's something that I think all the intenders are being intrigued about. That if we're going to believe that all meaning is the imperfect outworking of intention, but we are artists that create a thing, a substance, and we need to have something to show for that intention. And yeah, a lot of artists have been looking at how we can show that intentional trail in the work. And I thought yours was a particularly a good piece of work, not just a good piece of writing, but I thought it worked very, very well, having some of the editing process, some of the previous ideas that you had, just as you say, in brackets, in parentheses. And that particular poem, I think it was called something like On the Train, wasn't it? Or something related to train. Do you remember that? Do you remember it, Gideon? Or?
Vaguely. Yeah, it did have something about trains. I was probably, you know, having worked on with trains, I suppose it's always in my the forefront of my mind. But I mean, unfortunately, I'd have to relook at it.
We are talking about 10 years ago or something like that. It's a long time. But I'm sure that's on our website. So our website's www.intentism.org. And if you look under writing, I'm absolutely certain you'll find Gid's poem. It's very well worth having a read. It's very good. Thanks, Gid. So let's come a little bit more to the sort of recent past, the last couple of years or so. Now, as you informed us, you have a fine art background. You've done a little bit of poetry, but the last few years, you've really been engaged in writing a novella. Is that right? Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in writing that, and maybe a little bit, without telling us any of the sort of the endings, tell us a little bit more of the plot line and the story?
Yeah, sure. It's a novella based with quite a strong comic edge to it, based on my experiences of having worked on the tube, and it's just really the reality of what it's like. I really wanted people to feel and sense the reality of what it's like to be on a station. You know, you're kind of very conspicuous, and at the same time quite the opposite. You're invisible, you know, in your uniform, walking around. And so I wrote it from personal experience, but I wanted it to be a story, even though not really a lot happens in it. But yeah, so I've been working on it on and off, and then I just finally decided to, you know, put it out there. mention.
Wonderful. And it's I can say from first-hand experience, it's a very interesting read. I'm sure Gideon will tell us where you can get it. I think you can get it on Amazon. Is that right, Gid?
Yes, absolutely. You can get it on Amazon.
Do you know offhand how much it is?
It's about £5, £4.99. You can get it on Kindle or as a paperback. So on Amazon, it's called End of the Line by Gideon Parry.
I'm lucky enough to have it here actually. So if you can see, I don't know if the writing's going to be back to front on YouTube or not. But End of the Line,
Okay.
there it is. It's only what is it? It's only 103 pages, so you can read it in an afternoon. It's very, very good.
Thank you. And there's actually a different cover now. But no, it's fine. It's easy to find.
Wonderful, thanks, Gid. So, just going back to the theories and the ideas of intentism, and how you've been involved in that art movement for some time. Can you tell us a little bit how maybe those theories might have influenced how you went about writing End of the Line?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, it's written in the second person throughout, so it's the you. It's you. It's not. I mean, normally, people write in the first or third person, but this is the second person. And it was. I remember, I was reading quite a bit of American literature, and I came across Jay McInerney's book, Bright Lights, Big City. Also a novella, also with a strong comic edge, very much based on events in his life, and I just thought it worked so well in the second person. And what I find with the second person is that it kind of, you're in the protagonist's shoes, so my protagonist was his name's Peregrine. But that's the fictional avatar. But but you're really. I mean, I can't really separate. It's very difficult to separate, a story from one's own experiences in one's life. So it actually comes through naturally anyway. Even if I hadn't intended it, it just would have come through. That's basically the idea is that you as a reader are holding the story as it happens, and you feel you're literally in the shoes of you're being taken on a journey as it unfolds, and that's the effect of the second person. And and obviously my background experience has blended in to the story, and it's just, you can't, I think it's just impossible to separate whatever you write, your own experiences or your own something about yourself is going to come through. And that's...
I think there's some really interesting themes there. I've been blessed to know Gideon, as I said earlier, for a number of years, and we've had conversations about this novella over the years that Gideon's been working on it. And we've had conversations about using the second person. And it's always intrigued me. I know that Gideon has said that there are other novellas that have practiced this prior to Gideon's writing, but it's always intrigued me how it's working in Gideon's novel, because I'm not quite sure why. I'm sure people who have better understanding of psychology or linguistics would have a better answer than me. But even though you'd think that the more common first person for narration, I did as I did that, would make the work more personal, resonate with you more as you read it, I don't think so. I think when you're reading, you do this, you do that. I don't know if it's related to a kind of sense of being commanded to do something. Now you should do that. Now you should do that. But I feel that I'm actually more involved. It's more me that's the protagonist in the story, rather than if it was I did this. So I think it's very interesting. Any other thoughts on that, on the second person, or?
Yeah, I mean, normally, traditionally, the only books that have been in the second person have been like cookbooks or self-help books or something like that, addressing you directly, or instructional books sort of telling you what to do. But I think, I mean, I did experiment with the first person, then I tried the third person, but it just worked better. It felt better, almost intuitively. It felt better in the second person.
I find it interesting what you said about books telling you what to do as well, like cookbooks.
Yeah.
Maybe there is that sense of, it's not really an imperative, get up, stand there, go there, but maybe it has that kind of similarity, if it being very direct, that I'm involved, like an imperative would be.
Yes, that's right. It's hard to really pin down, but it definitely makes you feel that you're being taken along, and it's actually you're experiencing the action, and obviously it's in the present tenses, and it's just it's a real experience. You're being taken along for a ride.
Wonderful. And tell us a little bit more, finally, you touched on it earlier, that the setting of the novella relates to the protagonist's world, working for the underground and London transport system. Now that's also your background as well, because I'd like you to mention a little bit more about that, because when I was at art school, and you were saying your art school has been taken over by Central St Martin's, well that's where I went. And I remember vividly in my first year that we were told there's no such thing as singularity of authorship. And what they were saying is that you can't create in a vacuum. That there's always that kind of intertextuality. You're always touching on other things that other people have done. I like to look upon that in a slightly different way. I think that that you can't separate the work from all the experiences you've had as a person, your background, your education, your family, even things more intrinsic, like your personality and that kind of thing, that ends up just naturally bleeding into the work. So can you tell us a little bit more about how your own life, maybe on the underground, influenced how you went about and how you influenced the story behind End of the Line?
Yeah, I felt like a fish out of water a little bit working there. Although I did find people there that I got on with, and but it did feel like a strange, slightly alien environment in a way for me. I felt very lost. I mean, and I didn't. Sometimes you're judged by what, like, you go to a party and people ask you what you do, and and then people like to kind of, they feel more comfortable when they know what you do, and then they can sort of, relate to you in terms of what you do. And I felt like this wasn't really who I was at all, but it was just a kind of money job, really. I was working two jobs at the time. I was working in the mornings. I was when they still have booking offices, I was selling tickets, and then going to the cinema and sort of, selling popcorn and stuff. So I don't really know, but I just felt, you had, it was an interesting environment in a way. It was quite a boring job, and you had lots of kind of tin gods of, there was one guy who liked to sort of watch you on camera as a station supervisor, and some of those incidents really did happen to me, like the, when I first started working, when I first started working at Good Street Station. Sorry about this.
No worries, no problem.
Okay, let me just turn that off. Right, when I first started, yes, I wasn't liked, and I never found out who did this, but I had curry powder thrown into my locker. It was knocked. It was forced open, and my whole uniform was covered in curry. And
Wow.
but I never found out who did that. So, but I met some people that I never would ordinarily have met. So it was kind of interesting. But it was a real source of there was a lot of humor as well, and I was gravitating towards writing at the time more and more, you know, and you know, and I want to continue writing, but no, I just felt that there was a novel there, you know, and a novel has never really been written about that I'm aware of in that way. So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Gideon, for joining us. It's on a bank holiday. A lot of you may watch this video on a subsequent day, but Gideon's very kindly spoke to us in the morning of a bank holiday. So thanks very much, Gid. Please check out End of the Line, even though, as Gideon said, the cover looks slightly different. You can get it in all the different sort of platforms. It's a very, very good read. It's very funny. Some of it's quite dark. Some of it's very personal. It's very funny, though. It's worth getting hold of. And as part of the Intentist movement, we're hoping to have another exhibition either this side of Christmas or just after Christmas in London, where we're going to get artists and musicians, but also Gid as a writer down, and we're going to show a documentary about the origins of Intentism, including how Gideon got involved and his work. His paintings as well as his writing, and then we're going to have an exhibition. So keep looking out either on our website, www.intentism.org, or in these subsequent videos to see if you can find out more about where that will take place. But it only leaves me again to say thank you so much, Gideon. Hope to see you very soon.
Thanks for having me.
It's a real pleasure, really enjoyable, and even though we're under not lockdown anymore, but we still got the coronavirus, let's try and organise that meet up and have a coffee sometime. Thank you so much, Gid.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Take care.
Bye, mate. Bye-bye. So that's Gideon, very good writer, very experienced writer, very funny man as well, and someone that also believes that even though perhaps we don't create anything in a vacuum, there's no such thing as singularity of authorship, we still maintain, as he does, that all meaning is the imperfect outworking of intention. And if you have no creative input, you have no meaning input. If you're interested in these ideas, as I say before, please check out our website, www.intentism.org, or you can have a look at these videos, these live stream videos. We also have 1 minute to 2 minute short videos about Intentist theory called Intentism Bites, and you can find that on YouTube as well. Good to see you, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot.